This week on Rockstar Superhero. France has a surprising stockpile of talented singers who bring a completely different approach to the modern voice. Kloeckner, the front and center vocalist for the very unique Seven-Eyed Crow, brings a plaintive and emotive sonic style that pierces the melodies and brings the audience in for a closer listen. It's beautiful stuff that blends really well with the instrumental candy the band brings to each song. I love it, and I'm positive you will too. So, without any further flourishes on my end, let's get to it. This is my chat with Kloeckner of Seven-Eyed Crow on Rockstar Superhero.
If you don't mind, I'd actually like to start with the name of the band.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this for a while, of course. We've been booked for over a month. And when I first read the name, my brain said, oh, like in the movie Altered States. Now, I don't know if you know this movie, but it came out in 1980, and it had a whole bunch of religious symbolism in it. But turns out it wasn't a seven-eyed crow, but a seven-eyed lamb, as in Jesus in the Bible.
Yeah, okay. Now I relate. Okay.
Right. But for whatever reason, my brain had told me that no, it was a crow. So I'm curious, is the idea behind the name play on that religious symbolism, or is it something far simpler?
I'd say yes and no.
Okay.
First, it's a long story. It's a party story, actually.
Okay, of course.
Yeah. One of our first together in the band, we had met maybe 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And, when you meet new guys and the sound is great, the men are cool, and you're fueled with something like euphoria. You say, I found the band. That's the band I like. That's the band I've been waiting for. Mm-hmm. And first party, bit of alcohol and everything, and we were driving on that idea to find a name. And I've always liked the ravens and the crows because a lot of humor in these birds. And the idea of seven eyes didn't come from the lamb, but it was religious in the part because the seven eyes are depicting, each one is depicting one direction you can throw your mind to.
Oh.
And it means cool. For us, it means with time or spirits. In time, we have past, present, future. In the mind, we were influenced by religion. So paradise, purgatory, hell.
Wow.
And one vessel to travel around these worlds, the dream. So we had the seven eyes. And we were really wasted that night.
Well, as I will say in my very worst French accent, fantastique. That's a great name and a great definition of why that name exists. And I love it because of the spiritual interplay. That's something I'm always fascinated with.
I am too.
Wow. Okay. So we're here today to talk about the new EP you have coming out, Icarus. And I'm curious, is there a general theme to the record? I've heard the tracks I've heard, but is there an overarching theme to the album?
Yeah, Icarus is a bit related to the myth because we think that men, in many ways, are outpassing the limits. They're playing with the limits we produce waste in amounts.
Yeah.
We didn't even start to change or too slow, too late. We use energies we cannot really control, like
Right.
nuclear. France has 58 nuclear reactors on its soil. And yeah, Icarus is related to the fact that maybe we're flying too high, and we don't really understand that we're playing with our whole lives. All our asses are on the line if we play with a limit.
And we don't learn from it.
I don't think so. Not yet, anyway.
I wonder why that is. I wonder why we embrace difficulty and chaos, and why it's always built through our desire to be gods ourselves, right? We're trying to be something we're not capable of being. We're trying to manage resources that we don't have the power to control, but we only want it. We don't want to allow somebody else the opportunity to use it, because they might figure it out or they might take it away from us. Either way, we lose the selfish focus, on us.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. We're screwed, buddy.
We can't, because we have kids. We have to live,
Yeah, that's true.
We say sometimes in France, optimism is of the brain. Pessimism is of the mood. It's too late to be pessimistic. Although I am. Certainly I am. But I have a kid now, so I cannot just be nihilistic.
Yeah. How old is your child again?
11 months.
Yeah. That's the most challenging, fascinating time you'll ever have with them. It's interesting how, as they get older, the dynamic, of course, changes because they become more independent, and you want to encourage that, but that's when all the bad things happen. Like
it scares you in the
right. Yeah. They get lost, they break arms, you're always afraid somebody's going to steal them. It's all those things. Do you, because of this world and you being an artist, do you hope to pour some of your mindset about the world into your child? Are you trying to teach your child how to think like you, or are you open to letting your child be completely 100% his own person?
Yeah, I think it would be a terrible mistake to try to teach her to think like me.
Yeah.
And devastating too. I don't want to. I want her to awake with fresh eyes and have her own ideas, her own hopes. I want her to be happy. And even if she's unconscious of the danger, maybe it's better,
Yeah.
If it's done, it's done. So might as well enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, that's true. She's here and she's loved by her papa very much. That much you've made it evident in our communications. And I love the idea of seeing life through her fresh eyes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful stuff.
Was it like that for you and your kids?
Yes and no. Let me say this, Jay. I have 6 children.
All right.
Yeah, and I have 2 generations. So I have children that are in their 30s, which is very strange, because that means I have grandchildren.
Yeah.
And then I have young children because I remarried, admittedly, 25 years ago. So I've been married for a long time, but we didn't have children until later in our marriage. So our oldest is 11. So I have this 20-year gap between children.
Yeah.
And I will say I'm a better father, but I'm still an awful father. I'm not a good dad. I'm proof that some people shouldn't have children, but I love my wife and my children dearly. I just don't know how to I'd be the first person to tell you I don't know how well I handle the pressures of being a father or a husband. It's a big struggle for me, but I love seeing them discover things. That's always fun.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. How about you? What's your experience been like so far?
As a father, or
yeah, your daughter's so young, but outside of the first time you saw her and you could not believe you saw a human being sitting in front of you, what's it been like over the last year to be her father?
It's been challenging, obviously.
Yeah.
And I had a few downs too, because I question myself every time. And so you have to get confidence to be a good father. Otherwise, the doubts could intoxicate your kid, even if she's a baby.
Yeah.
So I have to work hard on myself to be a better man, to be a better person in every way. And what's amazing is that she changes me, and I'm not the same man. I get angry, only sometimes. Before it was every day, every situation. So she doesn't make me a philosopher, but she awakes me too, and that's something I couldn't imagine before she was there.
Oh, I love that so much. Maybe just talking to you right now is going to help make me a better father too, because I do know that there are times when I could try harder, but I'm so tired or just feeling selfish that I don't want to put in that effort, that I don't want to try one more time, that I just want to, complain like a child myself and go into my room and sit down on the ground and pull, have a tantrum, which of course doesn't help them at all.
Yeah, but you have 6. Ask me the question
true.
when I have 6 too.
Yeah.
That's man, respect. Yeah.
Well, I've survived it. I don't know. I will say this, that my older children have grown up well. They've become incredible adults, and I would never take any credit for that, but they've been able to thrive despite a father that didn't really have an idea of how to father them. And in other words, I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this, Jay, is if we take ourselves out of the equation, we're not going to ruin everything. Sometimes, we just need to know that it'll be okay with or without us. It's better with us. But if we can't be good and loving, we shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? We need to be ready and available for our children, or we shouldn't be around them.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, look, I want to talk about this new record. You may have seen this online, but I've gone on to YouTube and a few different places, Facebook and whatnot, and commented about the songs, particularly Weird Boy. And I love that song. And I want to say why. Because I'm a huge fan of King's X. I'm a huge fan of Incubus. I love Perfect Circle. I love Tool. And then I'm also a fan of a Dutch band called Feather Mountain.
I don't know them.
Yeah, you should. They're fantastic. And so even though I'm not saying you were influenced by these bands, these are sounds that I love. So when I hear that song, again, specifically Weird Boy, I hear all my favorite things. So I'm curious, what were the bands that formed you and your own personal songwriting approach?
As a band, it's always hard to tell because we're 5 with huge influences.
Right.
So all my guys are huge Carnival fans.
Oh, yes. that makes sense.
Yeah, and that makes sense because at least Temata and Sound Awake are genuine masterpieces, and they change something in the game of progressive metal. So you can't deny it. It's great music, great music.
Yeah.
If we talk about bands I really look up to, me personally, in rock, these past 20 years, Ocean Size really influenced me.
Wow.
Manchester band, and split up now, but I keep following Mike Vennert, the singer, with attention, and I like his artist mind. It talks to me. In rock, it would be Ocean Size for me. For the others, it could be Perfect Circle, but you talk to my drummer, he would say Mr. Bungle, and I love Mr. Bungle too. It's a question you have to take time to answer correctly, because you forget so many artists. So I took a few notes to answer you, because I know the question would come. And in progressive metal, if I talk about this line precisely, Haken.
Love Haken.
I love that singer too. I think.
Oh, Ross?
Yeah, so much talent.
Yeah,
really. They on the early albums, The Mountain, Aquarius too, and Affinity.
Yes,
Affinity, and the EPs too. Really. These days, we talk often about them because it's really in our ears very often. I would say Tesseract too. At least Polaris, because Polaris in 2015 was incredible album. About metal, that's about all. You talked about Tool and Korn and Incubus. That's my culture, because I don't come from metal in the first place. I switched from rock to jazz, and I bifurcated to soul and funk, and then I came back to metal in the late 90s, and I took Incubus, Korn, Limp Bizkit, and all the others. And that Seattle had a really special place in my mind, because like all kids in the 90s, I was fan of Nirvana, but the others too. And Seattle was like La Mecca. For us, it was the place. When you told me you were from Seattle, I was,
that means I'm going to have weird, eclectic taste and talk about grunge all the time. But no, it's interesting. The Northwest back in the 90s clearly was the place to be. But there wasn't, even back then, there wasn't just one style. There was, of course, the grunge thing was big and significant, but we had bands that were trying to be similar to a Mr. Bungle or a Fantomas, where they were trying dangerous, right? They were trying new ideas, new sounds. They were experimental. There was a saxophone in everything. There was a dance track. Right, there was fire. It was a crazy experimental art world at the time, and it was this mixture of all of these things, and it was very, very enticing. But it got so lost, and I guess, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of circling right now. I'm trying not to cough and sneeze. For me, the Seattle thing was impactful, of course, because I was here. What I loved about the music, I also got tired of, and that is, we had bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, who I was particularly a huge fan of, but it was so overplayed everywhere, and it was even more overplayed here. But what it did do is it opened up our music market to new ideas, and that's where, you mentioned your drummer, loving Mr. Bungle. Well, we had Mr. Bungle and Phantomos, and all of a sudden we had instrumental bands like Tuatra, and we had a lot of experimental. We actually had a local band here. I could never pronounce the name of it. If it had a German name, it was like Tchung or something like that. And it was an industrial band that basically their fame was built around their stage show, which was almost all fire the whole time. It was like Rammstein before Rammstein. It was crazy. But they didn't have the music. In other words, they had the stage show, but they didn't have the music. They hadn't figured it out. So I guess what I'm trying to explain in my ramble is Seattle has been a great place for music, but when you get down to it, it's just another thing for another time. And it seems dated now to me. You know, I love Carnival. I love the Australian stuff, 12 Foot Ninja. Yeah. I recently met a band from down there called Sugar Spine, and I'm going to be talking to another band, North Lane. And so that scene has really become something. Is that what's motivating you in France? I mean, are you getting a lot of music from Australia or from outside of the country?
I think the Australian scene has infused in France too. And many local bands think as Carnival and Caligula's Horse and 12 Foot too, like role models, you know, to build a new scene. But I don't know if we have the market to. First, we're limited by the language.
Right.
You know, to sing in English is a thing, but to write great lyrics in English when you're a French guy is difficult. But it's difficult in French too, and it doesn't sound the same, you know. So we really like to sing in English because it sounds like the sound we want to produce, but right. We don't have the market here in France. For example, in every radio has to diffusing. You have to get 40% of French music, you know, like sing in French in the program of the radio.
Oh,
that's the law. That's the law. You know.
Oh, really? The law.
Yeah, that means four songs out of 10 you get in your radio have to be sung in French.
Right. Wow.
That's a limit. And that's a great limit to rock bands.
Yeah, that's interesting though, because I would think, and look, I've never lived in France, but I would think that the country is so clearly metropolitan. It's so forward thinking. It's so historical. It's kind of like Europe greatly distilled, if that makes sense. I feel like it's a melting pot that isn't a melting pot at all. And let me explain. You have the UK in the north, you have all the eastern countries, you know, Romania, Bulgaria, whatnot on the side. And then you have the southern countries like, you know, Italy and Spain. France is clearly in the center. You would think it would have been infected, and I think infected is a good word, by everything around it, and yet it's found a way to sort of keep itself separate. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, maybe, but in Europe, you know, we all share influences. That's the historical part of it, because France and Italy have shared borders, but it moved in the time. So when you get near Lyon and Marseille, etc., you know, you sound like Italy already. When you're in the north, you sound like Belgium. When you're in the east, you sound like Germany, very much so. Yeah, historically and culturally, that's the case. But in the music, in rock, it doesn't work the same. We all look up to English music and American music, and now Australian music, but we didn't manage to create a real French scene, you know, to my opinion, and maybe it's not the same, but That's why rock bands will always be influenced by the English people. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've got to keep your own identity as well. I mean, there's part of that is the beautiful thing. Why would you want France to be like everywhere else in the world when France is France? Let it be unique.
That's a paradox.
Yeah. That's okay. That's really curious to me. Do you think then, because in America, really, we have very, very limited understanding of France. We tend to pick on it for politics, and we don't understand the music, with the exception of maybe Gojira, and that's only if you're a heavy guy. If you're into heavy music, we just don't understand the music scene in France. Although to me, it seems a lot like Japan's scene, that it's pop centric. Is that correct?
I don't. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's a bit like it. Yeah. The heavy music and great heavy sound of metal. It doesn't find its place on the broadcasts here. It's outcast.
Yeah, it doesn't find its way here though either. I mean, not on the radio.
Oh yeah. Okay. I would have thought so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have rock stations in America, but they are playing traditional, safe stuff like Van Halen, right? Loverboy, a classic 80s hard rock, not necessarily modern rock. We do have a couple of stations that play extreme music after, say, midnight, where they will try all sorts of things, Lorna Shore, the really, really brutal death metal stuff, but that's limited to, the midnight to 2 a.m. slot, for
it's a niche.
For scary people like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, niche. So look, it's been 7 years. I don't know how long you've been in the band. How long have you been with Seven Eye Crow?
We all joined the same year.
Okay.
Yeah, 2014, 2015.
Okay.
We were all there. But I was the last to come in the band.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I thought that was the case, but I wanted to be sure. So you guys, you get together right off the bat, you release Dark Ways to the Sun.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, you began work on Organized Chaos. And both of these records, I believe, are available through your Bandcamp, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
But nowadays, here in 2022, we've had a lot of world problems. We've had a pandemic.
Yeah.
We have war. We have so many distractions. We have, the UK falling apart with, the Brexit, and we have financial dilemmas all over the world with the markets up and down. We have political upheaval with awful presidents and idiot presidents and everything in between. But you guys have been able to create during a very challenging time. And I wonder what helped you during this moment. Was it the input from family and friends, or was it an outside thing that motivated you to write new material?
I think many factors are in that case. First, we are friends. We're not only a band; we are friends, close friends. And one of us, Aurélien, which is a guitarist, has brought us many riffs during the pandemics and when we were all in quarantine. So we managed to create, because we had a new bassist too, a new bass player, Johan, which brought us some kind of equilibrium. He's very versatile, but also serving the song always.
It's good. He's a bass player.
And during the pandemics, after the we call it sideration, when you sit still and you just try to realize what's going on. I had a few months like this where I couldn't write anything. I couldn't think of any melody, anything positive. I was angry. I was, the only distraction to me was playing hoops because I'm a huge hoop lover. So only shooting threes was releasing my mind of the pressure,
Wow.
And a few months later, because I received on my mail every day new riffs that were great. And one day I had a click in the head and I started, filling the gaps and catching up with the others. And I started to write. And it was from there we wrote, only 5 tracks, but we wanted to issue it and maybe show that we were not dead.
Yeah.
And and today, today in the music industry, you have to you cannot think the way you thought in the 70s or the 90s or even you have to produce every time, so if we work hard 3 years on a new album, you release 10 tracks and it's forgotten instantly. So you have to take the time to get the tracks online and present it. So we adapted the method to produce EPs from now. 4, 5 tracks, 6 tracks, and then we switch to another one. And we want to evolve. So that's the method, which is.
Well, the music business is going to do it with or without you, because you're correct. When nobody's releasing, I mean, very few bands are releasing 10, 11 song albums anymore. They're releasing singles.
Yeah.
Or they're releasing EPs after a year, after they've leaked the singles over the course of a year. So they're constantly keeping bite-sized morsels in front of their audience. I know you're not in the music business to make money, because nobody makes money anymore. It's a tough one.
Especially in metal and rock.
Yeah, exactly. So because you and I both agree that, making a living in this business is virtually impossible, what motivates you to be here? Is it to teach your child something about her father? Or, are you trying to change the world in some beautiful way that I don't know?
It would be really pretentious to say I want to change the world. I won't change the world with lyrics. I won't awake people. I don't have the pretension to do it. But if we can leave some tracks and some albums that maybe 10 or 15 years later, kids, little punks will take and discover it. Shit, what is that? Let's listen to it. And that, to me, that's the only motivation. I don't write for this time. I don't write for any time. I write to, Voilà, creuser un sillon. We say like this in French. So we dig our own, we dig and making music. That's all.
Gotcha.
Attention.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. I have to say this, Jay. If you didn't write the material you've written, if you didn't take the time and you weren't motivated by the material your guitar player brought in, right? The riffs you mentioned earlier, or your drummer wasn't influenced by, Mr. Bungle, and maybe his approach would be different. If none of these things had occurred, you and I wouldn't be talking.
Yeah.
So what I love is that you guys have created something that is unique and purposeful, and it's available to me. And so I don't think it's pretentious to say that your music has already impacted me. And
thank you.
And maybe it's just one person with a voice, who wants to elevate you simply because he believes in what you're creating. or building a fan base that you don't believe can be built simply because people recognize that innate talent in you, you know, because everybody wants to compare what they hear to something that they know. They want to, because it's easier. It's easier to say, oh, you sound like Tool, which isn't true at all. I might recognize things in there, if that makes sense, but I'm not saying you sound like Tool. But it's so easy for people to keep their lives safe by just saying the first thing that comes to mind without paying attention. And yet here you and I are, we're talking about what has actually affected your life and how your music doesn't sound like Tool at all, but it's actually more resonates with Australian bands or the environment around you, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know there was no question in there. I just talked and talked and talked.
Yeah, but it was like you read my mind, and yeah, it's great. C'est une belle rencontre, like we say in French. You know, a great. You meet someone from thousands of miles away, and gives you confidence and gives you energy to keep doing what you're doing. And you know, maybe today I was in the mood, and maybe I didn't believe in my music, which is the case maybe 3 days on 4, because I'm not really a monster of self-confidence, you know, and I'm really bad in self-promotion. That's really not my concern, and I'm not good at it. So usually I don't really listen to feedbacks, because, like you said, many times it's only that's like Incubus, like Tool, and you say maybe we're influenced, so you tell yourself, oh shit, am I doing plagiat?
Right.
Am I copying them? Am I? And so we try to have an ethic and not being self-indulgent. We always try to question and say, does it sound like anything? To know, you know, are we doing something we shouldn't do? And many times we erase the whole track and we start it again, deconstruct, and until everyone is happy. We try to meet the consensus. I mean, you've been a rock player, a metal player, you know it. If you don't give your best to a song you're writing, it will come back to you as a boomerang, because you will be bored playing it, and you will be bored playing it live. It would be shame.
Yeah.
Why did we let it like that? I hate that song, but I have to play it too. And people know it, because you get paranoid in these times.
Right.
We don't want it. We try to avoid it.
Yeah. But, you know, so I really want to encourage you. I know you're not asking for this, and it might not even be my place, but I have to say this, Jay. You know, you mentioned, you know, how people might mistake your music or your influences to be, like I mentioned before, the Tools and the King's X's and whatnot. But the reality is everybody's influenced by something. And on top of that, they live in a world that they can't help but hear certain things, because other bands who are famous, like Tool, are currently playing their material, and you're hearing it. You can't not notice it. It's there. And, you know, as an example, Muse from the UK, Muse. When they first started, everybody said they sound like Radiohead. That's all they said. All they ever said. You guys sound like a pop version of Radiohead with more arpeggios. just Radiohead. And you know what? They were correct. But here's the thing. Radiohead stopped sounding like Radiohead.
Yeah.
Radiohead in 2000 decided they wanted to get weird on us and release Kid A. And all of a sudden they ruined the traditional songwriting method. They went off the deep end and tried something new. And don't get me wrong, I think it's fantastic what they did. I think they changed the game forever. They completely changed the way modern music is digested, and they changed the way modern music is sold. And they've proven that if you're good enough, the people will come no matter what. You don't need a label. You can do it all yourself. So it's possible. But when they left Radiohead's sound back in the 90s, somebody needed to pick it up. Yeah. Because that sound was a great sound, and Muse picked it up. And it wasn't for another 5 or 6 years before Muse found their own version, their own voice that sounds only like Muse. So I guess what I'm trying to say is your music sounds like a melting pot of all the things it should sound like, because you guys are a group of people with influences coming from all sides. But I don't think anybody sounds like you. And I think the longer you stick it out, the more clarity you'll get, and people will hear what I'm hearing, that there's something really lovely happening in between the notes, the mindset of the music, and the way the song turns on you is really fascinating and gorgeous and singular.
That's great. Merci.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know any French.
really kind word. Yeah.
Yeah. I can say Je m'appelle Robert. That's all I got, buddy. But yeah, I think that's true. So if me saying that, do you believe your songs can help the world? Do you think it's pretentious to think that you could write a song that changes the world? Somebody has to.
Yeah.
Somebody has to, Jay.
Yeah, but maybe we can infuse people's imagination. One of our friends told us one day, and it was really kind word to me. He told us, guys, your music reminds me of a soundtrack for a movie. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand in the first place when he told us, but then after I realized that our music could let you throw your mind wherever you want, because we have twists and we have we change of direction during the same song, and maybe it can be a company to your mind, to wander and to escape and to, but you have to be humble in music, because everything or almost everything has been done and has been done so good. So you talk about Radiohead, what courage it takes to throw away all the things that made you famous and to deconstruct it and to go into something like electropop or post-rock, and be successful again, even more. I really look up to them, and I hope we can stay together, because when you're a band, the first challenge is to get the band united, not to have too many turnover in the lineup, and
right,
stick with the same guys with years and years, like you're hammering a piece, and so many times to shape a blade, like the Syrian blade, when it's the same to me. We have to stay together and keep doing tracks, and hope for the best. Yeah. And I hope maybe on the Icarus we start to find our own sound, slowly but surely, I hope. Well,
I mean, I think you've certainly found it, a part of it anyway. You're on that journey, and as long as you stick to your guns and you don't worry about what other people are thinking, will this resonate? Will anybody be captured by this? You just make something that gives you joy, or that you feel like it's explaining a point of view or breaking a paradigm. Those are the things that matter. Nothing else really does. Selling out to get the popular opinion isn't going to be valuable for anyone, because the truth is the popular opinion chases and changes every 5 minutes. So if you write something, nobody's going to care about it in a month.
Yeah, of course. It's a way of losing yourself to don't believe the hype.
That's so true. So one of the things I always like to ask, definitely before I let you go, is everybody's, we're human. We're all human. We all have struggles. We have strengths. Artists tend to do both in the public eye. We tend to thrive, and people see us and they say, wow, that person has a lot of great energy. They've got something about them that draws me and attracts me. But then they look at us sometimes and they see us falling apart in front of them, that we have a failure, that we might have an addiction, or we can't stop talking about something we want people to understand about us. And we're lost because we're humans. We're all lost. Do you have a self-destructive habit? Do you have something that you undercut yourself all the time and you've had to learn how to overcome?
Of course. How do you do it? You read my mind. Yeah, of course. I have something I have been struggling against all my life, and that's the fact that I don't really love life. I have to. I've had. Yeah, I'm opening to you, but I've had suicidal tendencies when in an early age, about 14 or 15, and these thoughts never really left me. So I had to build like a helmet around my mind to protect myself against the things that hurt me, like the state of the world, the evolution, the violence, the hate, the stupidity. And I had to build something to change the energy. And to be a musician, to me, is like being a plant. You take the waste and you synthesize it and you produce flowers. To me, that's the best image I could take to depict myself as an artist. I've had a history of sadness, and I try to transform it into energy and into art, to exercise, and it's working. Most of the time, it's working, but not every time.
Wonderful. So I love what you've said, and I love how you've described it. So you said you've been working on creating a helmet sort of around your soul, around your psyche. How do you imagine things? I mean, how do you change something that is, almost spiritual, right? Because the idea behind depression is in our mind. It's not actually physically tangible. It's created in our thoughts and in the juices, our brain, right? The parts of our body that we don't really have any control over. How do you overcome those pains or fears or anger or depression? How do you do that? I need to know.
I think what saved me for the most part was sports and the hormones of sports, like endorphin. I've talked about hoop, but I can swim. Sport has always helped me to clear my mind and to change the energy inside. That's my weapon against sadness, because I'm not depressed. I don't have depression. I have a huge melancholy about the world, but I have when you have depression, you don't have energy. You
Right.
can't go swim, you can't go play hoops and fool around. And I can fool around, but one part of me can split and go into sadness very easily. So sport helped me, And then I discovered music and rock, and I could really thrive, like you said. And I think that saved me. But the helmet I have around my brain, you don't have many ways to escape it when you're sad.
Yeah.
Soit tu es aveugle, either you're blind and you choose to be blind because what you see will hurt you and will kill you, or you want to see everything. The most most things you can see, you take the knowledge from every part and you try to synthesize it to have something to think straight, to think straight, in my opinion, is something that saves us, because we know when it's right and when it's wrong. And, in France, these times, it would be really useful for the people to read much, to read much more, and to vote better, because that's horrible. And that's my method. I read many things to reassure my knowledge and my conscience of the world. That's my daughter.
I hear her. That's wonderful. That's awesome. Well, thank you for being so straightforward on that. I know that can be an uncomfortable question, so thank you for sharing your truth. And I think there's so many people that will hear that, Jay, and it will resonate with them. And I think that's really important. It's really important for people to know that the people they look up to are just like them. They're just in the public eye, but they're struggling with real human conditions, and they figured out the tiniest little tweaks to get through, So that's really lovely.
It's in the details all the time. Salvation is in the details.
That is a perfect thing to say. Salvation is in the details. So I have to ask you a question then, because we talked about it at the top and you just mentioned a tiny bit. Do you have a spiritual bent? Did you grow up, in the church? Are you non-religious? You know what I mean? I'm just kind of curious because you speak in spiritual overtones.
I'm not religious. My family wasn't. But like my girlfriend often says, there has to be something. And in my early years, when I was a little boy, I sometimes felt like I was feeling and perceiving some things that the others didn't, like some kind of presence. Sometimes it's like someone was trying to communicate with me, or some eyes were laid on me, and I had the impression I was the only one. So while I was growing up, all these things went away, and I grew a normal man. But I think some of us are connected on something else. And I don't know if it's God. I don't know if it's spirits. I don't know if it's heaven, hell, and purgatory, and past, present, and future, which are same layers of one reality. But I think there is something.
Yeah,
I couldn't describe it, and I'm too little. I'm just a little guy. I can't describe it. It's higher than me. So,
well, I think you just described it pretty well. And if there's any consolation in all of this, when you look at your child, you get to see God. That's the beauty. Exactly. You get to see, even if you can't explain a creator in your own personal life, you definitely get to see one in your child. So good for you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look, Jay, I think I've got enough for this. Are you good with that?
Yeah,
okay?
I'm good. That was great. I was a bit anxious, and my
I'm sorry.
But I was thinking before the interview to tell you, man, I can do it two ways. I can speak like a two Frenchmen, and speak to you like this. So yeah, so my mind can go faster and I can talk faster, but it's horrible, it's ugly, Or I could tried to take an accent, and I knew it would be shit, but I couldn't. I didn't have the nerve, to propose you a true French accent,
Yeah. I would have never known. Just like, oh, you know what I mean? I was like waiting for you to make some like a French pastry or something. But
the mind is funny. If you think about the words and you think about your accent, you're distracting. But if you only on your thoughts and you forget the accent, and so you speak like this. Yes. You can go more fluent. But it sounds like shit.
Yeah. Well, look, don't be afraid in the future, whoever you talk to, because your accent is lovely, and I think so I mean you just need. You know what it is, Jay. You need to be around people, and I need this too. And this is why I do it. Actually, I do this so I can meet people like you that change my life. For the songs that changed my life as far as the relationship in humans, because we spend so much time seeing so much bad that we need to be reminded there's so much good.
Exactly.
And so I do this for this. I'll be the first person to tell you, I struggle greatly with depression. I never used to. And now I struggle. I mean, big time. Like yesterday was really, really, really hard for me. And so having these experiences, even though I'm sick, and my apologies, but they're really important. And I want you to know this. Before I let you go, thank you for being such an exceptionally lovely person. And thank you for communicating so well with me on the emails, because you tried very hard. And thank you for trying for me today, because people hear that, they know that you're genuine, and that's why they want to hear your music, because they like the person. It all connects. And that's what's important, Jay. Just don't ever stop being you. Don't be afraid to take risks and to try new ideas. And if anybody tells you you're wrong, you're not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks about you except your creator, and obviously your family, right? So, I care about you. I like you, and I'm really happy for you to have a new baby, and I love this music. So I'm really digging Jay, man. I'm digging you a lot.
I'm digging you too.